When I was a kid, I lived with my awful, neglectful parents. My dad would become violent and shout a lot. I quickly learned how to evade the beatings. My mum didn't seem to even care. She'd just stand there with a cuppa and her fag, saying nothing. Unfortunately, I didn't have anybody to run to for help, as it would be a long walk for a 7-year-old girl to reach the neighbours. Being a small girl, I was able to hide in any place pretty easily. I've even hidden in a cupboard from my dad. I was amazing at hiding, thanks to my dad. On one night, I looked for a new hiding spot. Dad came back drunk again. I could tell by the tone of his voice as he shouted, "Time to hide," I thought. Mum, once again, wasn't bothered. She was just winding him up even more by asking where he'd been. I suddenly remembered a spot in the garden. Under the decking in our back garden was a tiny part of the lattice missing. It was just big enough for me to fit into. Perfect, I thought. It was autumn, so I knew it was going to be cold out. I grabbed my blanket and my teddy bear and climbed out of the window quietly and dashed to the back garden. I crawled under the lattice, scratching my elbows and getting splinters, but I managed to get inside. It had quite a lot of space in here to spread out. I couldn't sit up, but that was fine. I was cold now and covered in damp mud, so I wrapped my blanket around me and tried to get warm, hoping it wouldn't rain tonight like it had the last two. My blanket didn't help for long though, as I began to shiver. It was harder to breathe now. I had to deal with it though, as I wasn't willing to face my dad. "Baby, you need to stay warm." That wasn't my mother's screeching, raspy voice from all of her smoking. It was a soft, sweet voice. Turning over, I see a woman. She's lying down on her back next to me. She had mud all over her and had a beautiful bracelet on. I wondered how I didn't see her get down here. "I know," I reply. She crawled forward and embraced me in a hug. I became very warm, as though she'd just lit a fire beside us. I didn't mind that she was dirty. I was too, and I snuggled up to her. "You're so big now," she said, looking at my face. "How old are you now, Tanya?" 7. I don't remember who this woman is. I don't think I know her. 7, the woman gasped. "You're a big girl now. I'm so pleased." She stroked my hair. I'd never felt this relaxed in my life. "What's your name?" I asked curiously. She smiled at me as I heard it in her voice. "My name is Rebecca. Do you like chess?" "Yes," I answered. Rebecca laughed. "Just like me then." I nodded. "Can you play it with me?" I heard Rebecca sigh deeply. "Your daddy put me in here and I'm unable to leave, so I wouldn't be able to play." Rebecca had an idea. "Tanya, can you help me out?" "Definitely." This lady was so kind, of course I'd help her. "In the morning, can you go to the police station? Ask for Officer Jackson. Tell him where Rebecca is, okay, honey? Under the decking. He'll come and get me and then we can hopefully play chess." I nodded excitedly. "I'll do it!" Rebecca smiled and said, "Night, Tanya." When I awoke in the morning, my dad had already gone to work. Rebecca's voice said, "I'll explain how you get to the police station." I crawled out and rubbed my eyes, ran into the house and got my shoes on and then my coat and left. It was a long journey. It seemed to take forever. I had Rebecca's guidance though. I can now see the big building just over the road. Thank God, I was exhausted. I head to the front desk and almost collapse. An officer spots me and walks towards me asking if I'm all right. I need Officer Jackson, please." "No problem. Let me just get you a nice hot drink of milk. Your lips are quite blue," he responded. The hot milk was so good, and he got me a blanket too. Another officer approached me. "I heard you asked for me. Is everything okay?" "I'm Tanya." I take a sip of my milk and say, "Rebecca's under the decking and we can't play chess until you get her out." The color from his face drained. I was taken back home. Police cars and officers were everywhere. Yellow tape cordoned off the back garden, and my dad was taken away in handcuffs after some other officers were carrying a big black bag away. I moved in with my granddad, Officer Jackson. My life was different, and it was amazing. My granddad really loved me. I always asked about Rebecca, but the subject was always changed quickly. It was my 16th when Granddad said, "Let's go visit your dad's old house." We got to the old house, but it had been knocked down. We sat nearby and had a can of Coke together. He then says, "Rebecca was your mum." "My mum?" I was confused. "The woman that lived with your dad wasn't your mum." My granddad grabbed himself a beer. "Rebecca was my daughter. I loved her unlimited amounts. But when you were around 10 months old, she disappeared." My heart sank. "My dad just trapped her under our decking?" I asked, feeling sick. Grandpa set down his beer. That has always confused me. How Rebecca told you to find me and then you can both play chess. Yeah, it's thanks to her that I was warm that night. I would have frozen to death if it wasn't for Rebecca's warmth. He was very quiet before opening his beer can and said, "Tanya, Rebecca has been dead for over 6 years. She was literally a skeleton when we dug her up. Your father threw her over the balcony when they were arguing and she landed on her head, which was badly damaged, and she broke her neck." He got annoyed now. I always had a feeling he had something to do with it, but I could never have imagined she was under the decking until you walked into the police station that day. I was shocked. I could hardly breathe. "You're wrong, Grandpa. I saw her. She was alive. She was wearing a beautiful bracelet." I trailed off and Grandpa pulled an evidence bag out of his pocket. It was the bracelet, rustier than I remembered, but it was definitely the same one. Grandpa placed the bag into my hands, a tear in his eye. "You were Rebecca's world. That's why she chose to stay with that man. She had lots of pictures of you both and would regularly send them to me." Tears filled my eyes as I held the bracelet to my chest. I leaned against Grandpa. He hugged me tight as tears rolled down his face. And in that moment, I swear I could feel that warm love I felt that night underneath my decking.